Hey guys, this weekend I went to Please Be Solved Vancouver 2019, and it's named that way because it's the blindfolded events and fewest moves. So to summarize what happened for me, I got one decent 3x3 blindfolded solve. For 4x4 blindfolded, all DNFs. 5x5, all DNFs. Multi-blind, I got 4 out of 6 and 5 out of 6. And for fewest moves, I got a 25 move solve, which is insane. I totally wasn't expecting that. I'll let past me sum it up. So FMC or fewest moves challenge. I do think this is really cool and I'm going to give it an A tier. Not S tier because there's too much luck involved. So I'll show you guys that solve at the end of the video, but right now I want to talk about competitions where you perform poorly. Everyone on average performs worse in competition because you practice in a home environment, you go to a competition and it's a different environment, so obviously you're not going to do your best. There are times where you can do better or get luckier, but in general people will do worse. But there are times where even when you go in with realistic expectations of what you should get in competition, and it's just way worse than that. This competition was going very poorly up until that 25 move solve. And so it got me thinking about my past competitions where I did poorly. So one of them that comes to mind is Snowco Fall 2018, where I had just started averaging sub 9 at home and I was improving at 5x5, and I went there. I did get my best 5x5 average, but it was 3 seconds worse than my normal average. And for 3x3, I was averaging 11 that day. I had a long drive home after that competition, and obviously I wasn't trying to think too much about it, but after competitions like that, going home and thinking about cubing feels a little bit pointless because it's like I'm not going to do well anyway. I know that quite often in competitions I can do pretty well, but when it's just a whole day of bad solves, it really is demoralizing. Thinking back on competitions where I did poorly, what I've realized is right now it doesn't affect me. I don't care about those at all. Obviously I cared about it then because that was really important at the time, but I've been to so many more competitions later and broken all of those records, so it's like whatever, it's part of the past. And this is really important for keeping your focus between events. For example, if you care a lot about 3x3 and then just bomb your average, you still have other events you have to do. And it's really important to stay focused and keep a healthy mindset so that you don't just keep doing worse throughout the day. You can always get a good single solve or something, so you always want to be as close to your A game as possible, even when it seems hopeless. I've thought that way before when I bombed a 2x2 average and went straight to 4x4, and I was so focused and I just bombed that average as well. And yeah, sometimes it doesn't work out, but this time it did work out, and I'm really happy that I was able to stay focused for that fewest move solve because otherwise I would not have been able to come up with a good solution. So here's my 25 move solution, and this is the scramble. I've labeled the sides here so that it makes sense when I do certain moves, wides like B and L and stuff. And I use some advanced techniques for fewest moves here called block building, NIS, or normal inverse scramble switch, and insertions. So if you don't know what those mean but you're interested, then let me know in the comments if you want to see a fewest moves tutorial series. Just keep in mind, I'll try to make this understandable, but again, this is not a tutorial, so some things you'll just have to trust that what I'm doing is right. So the first thing you'll notice on the scramble is we have a pair right here. So for block building, we want to look for pairs like this. And when you have a pair, you want to extend it to a full square. And how that's done is by attaching it to its center, which is already done, and then solving that last edge that goes there to complete a square. And one way you could do this, which for some reason I didn't notice, but if I did notice, I probably wouldn't have gotten a 25, is by putting this one over here. So L, F2, L prime. And technically you could also do L2, F2, L2, which does the exact same thing. And you have an hour, so it could be worth trying both to see which one gets you luckier at the end. So some of my friends at the competition did that. I didn't do that. What I did was I saw this one can go here, and then I can join this pair here to make the square. After making the square, you want to insert that last edge over here to make a full 2x2x2 block. And I was going to do that, but I realized it would take me 4 moves to insert this one over here, and I wanted to see if I can do anything on the way to inserting this. So instead, what I noticed was that this one, if you think about it as having a yellow cross, is almost solved. And the corner that goes with it is here, and the edge that goes with it is here. So if you think about this as an F2L pair, if I do this, well, this is not set up. So actually I could do U before that. And then now they're set up. Then to insert this, I could do F, U, F prime, and this cross edge stays here, and I'm going to insert it with F, R2, F prime. So some of the F's cancel there, and then I end up with an 8 move 2x2x3, which is pretty good. Now, what I try to do from here depends on the scramble, and I'll try a bunch of things. But first, what you have to notice is that yellow on the bottom here, you could extend the cross kind of like a cross, but do block building and try to get like another square here, or just get the cross edge and another edge. Or you could do it on green, because we have the equivalent on yellow and green here. I could just have green as my bottom color and try to extend from there. Or from here, I could try to orient all of the edges, which is an advanced concept that I won't talk about here. But that's not what I ended up doing, and what I did was I went to the inverse of the scramble using this block already made. And how that's done is by doing everything I've done here and just reverse it. And this is normal inverse scramble switch, or NIS. It's essentially like having two scrambles at once that you're trying to solve. So what I noticed here is that we have this one that could be paired right away. So I'm going to start working on yellow because this is a yellow pair, and not a green pair because green was the other side I could work on. And then this was pretty easy. I'm just going to attach this one here and insert this cross edge along with this pair all at the same time, like that. From here, again, I could do like edge orientation. I could try to insert some edges to their solved spots, or I could solve this F12 pair and go for like a normal last layer finish and just hope I get lucky with like an OLL skip, PLL skip, or a ZBLL that I know. So what I actually did from there is I headed back to the regular scramble to see if I had anything there. All right, so this is what we get. Again, we're on last slot. And so here, what I was going to do is just see what happens if I insert this. So I paired them like that, and then I inserted like this, and I got this OLL, which made me really, really happy. Now, I hope you can see why this made me happy. I mean, if you don't know OLL, you won't see why, but this OLL starts with this. Do you remember where this pair was before I inserted it? It was right here, which means all of those moves just canceled. 4 moves from the OLL and 4 moves from inserting this just canceled, so that I just lost 8 moves from the solution. I mean, 8 moves sounds like a lot, but I could have just tried doing a sledgehammer and realized it cancels into this OLL as well. I mean, it's all the same thing, but either way, it actually canceled 9 moves because the last move of the F12 pair was this. But I'm going straight into a sledgehammer, so I can just add that there. And then, just cancel into the OLL like that. And then I get 3 edges left. This was after only 22 moves if you add all the moves I did here and all the moves I did on the inverse. 22 moves to 3 edges is a really good skeleton. A skeleton is solving as much as you can while leaving just a few edges or just a few corners or some combination of them in order to be solved using insertions. But basically, a skeleton just means solve a lot, but not necessarily all of it. Now from here, I won't solve these 3 edges with a U-perm. I'll solve them with an insertion, which is going to save me some moves. So anyway, how my solution is looking so far is I take everything that I just did here, and then I add the reverse of what I did on the inverse, and that gives me my skeleton. So we're going to do the scramble, do this, and see what we get. So if you follow that correctly, you get this, which is still 3 edges unsolved. They're in a different location, but that's what happens when you add the inverse of what you did on the inverse to the end of that. So I thought 22 moves to 3 edges, really good. It usually takes me like high 20s or even 30. But some moves between this part and this part ended up canceling. B cancels with B prime, which is 2 moves gone, and then the U cancels with the U2 to make U prime, which is another 1 move gone. So that's 3 moves canceled, and I have 19 to 3 edges. Now to solve these 3 edges, remember how I said I'm not doing a U-perm? Well, why was I not going to do a U-perm? That's because the optimal U-perm is, I believe, 9 moves, and there is a better way to cycle through 3 edges. So that better way is U2, M prime, U2, M. And that cycles this, this, and this. So these 3 edges being here are not in the right spot, and I'm actually not going to solve them here. And earlier when it was the U-perm, I could have solved them there, but I didn't either. And that's because I don't have to solve it at the end. I could solve it at the beginning, I can solve them anywhere in the middle, and that's because I'm just cycling 3 edges. Who cares when I do it? It doesn't affect any of the other pieces, so I can do it anytime I want. So what I was hoping for basically was that somewhere along the line, somewhere in the middle probably, these 3 edges would be perfectly aligned like this, and I can just do those 6 moves, and then they will be solved, and I won't have to spend 9 moves doing a U-perm, or however many moves it takes to solve this. So I put some stickers on a cube and labeled them 1, 2, 3, and I just did the scramble and went through the solution to check if they were ever aligned perfectly. So with the stickers still here, I did the scramble, and then I started going through my solution. And right here, I'm about to do R2, and I noticed something. If I do R prime instead of R2, I end up with them perfectly aligned. So what I did was unnecessarily complicated. I split the R2 into R prime. So the first R prime sets them up here, and then I do the cycle between them, and then I do R prime again. Turns out I could have done something simpler, but it doesn't really matter. It doesn't save any moves. So anyway, from here, how I did the cycle was, okay, so 1 is the one that needs to go all the way across to here. So what I'm gonna do is do an R2 here first to get it here, and then I'm gonna swap these two, but on this face. So I'm gonna do an S move, but then you have to write it as like F prime B. So now I'm here. And then I did this U2, and then I undo that, so F B prime. Okay, so that was the cycle. It's 6 moves. I continue on with my solution, so I do the second R prime there, and then just do the rest normally. And it is solved in 25 moves. I probably won't beat this for a very long time as I only do fewest moves in competition because practicing it at home is just too much of a hassle. My best 2 results ever were 31 and 32, and so this 25 just came out of nowhere. Basically everything in the solve just worked out perfectly, and that is my proof that fewest moves just has too much luck involved.